Hello, everyone, and welcome to Urschel Learns Chess with the one and only.
Welcome, welcome. We are streaming from Anna's channel today because I am currently not at home. As many of you guys know, I streamed with Robert this week in New York. I am now streaming from Cornell University from the Center for Applied Mathematics.
Tell us more about what you have just done and why you were so busy today.
Yeah, I was quite busy because I just gave a talk on machine learning for the colloquium for the applied math department here, and also I had a bunch of meetings with a lot of professors here.
Well,
So
he's
quite busy.
just a legend. I told you guys that the real celebrity here is.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. But since John is so no, since John is so busy today, we only have an hour to deal
Yes.
with couple of rook endgames, starting with the position on the board. John, do you recognize this position?
This looks slightly familiar. I recall this from a extremely high level game played this week between two of the world's elite.
Oh,
If
sure.
I recall.
So, what is this game? Probably the viewers could already read the names, but can you tell
Yes.
us the background and actually that you were playing with the white pieces too?
Yes. So Robert and I, Robert's one of my best friends. I was visiting him in New York. We were doing a stream, and Anna joined in the chat. And so, of course, I had to bring up the fact that Robert is a French hater.
How can he be a French hater? He's such a nice guy. I thought we were friends.
I know, but he hates the French with all his might. And
I
we
hope he's
needed,
watching.
we needed to have a showdown between Anna and Robert. And of course, Robert
Whoa!
had white, and of course, Anna would play the French. And so eventually, time trouble ensued, and we got the following position, which you see on the board right now.
Actually, here, I I resigned, guys. No, actually, I ran out of time, but I would have resigned anyway. The problem came earlier on, and I want John to tell me where I could have played better. So
Okay.
we will not go through the whole game. Today is about rook end games,
Okay.
but just as a matter of fact, I did not win a pawn. So Robert blundered a pawn in the opening, but I respect him so much that I didn't expect him to blunder, and I didn't even think that he blundered. So I didn't realize it.
Hmm.
And later on, it was quite a balanced game until the moment where we trade queens and this position arises on the board. So this is black to move here, and you guys should also think how to proceed in this position. First of all, John, can you evaluate this position for us? What do you see? As
Uh,
of
well, naturally, I think I like white much better simply because white's up a pawn. And
and because you played as a white,
yes, I played as white.
please.
White's up a pawn.
Oh.
And also this G7 pawn is backwards. And also because of the G7 pawn, it's actually somewhat tough for black to defend the G4 pawn.
True.
And yeah, and also, on the queen side, white has, 3-on-1, and also white has a pass pawn on e5, so very, very careful sort of technique would be required by black to draw if black is capable.
That's a very good summary. And if you think that black has chances to draw this game, to hold this endgame, what is black's hope? What shall he or she build her hopes on in this position?
Well, I assume the hope has to be based off this G4 pawn.
Yeah,
It has to be,
correct.
because this is the only counterplay black has, and if black
Yes.
just waits, black is completely lost. And I need to sort of analyze it. I'm not convinced that black isn't completely lost already, but certainly if the G4 pawn is not sort of used, black has no chance, because everything that sort of, if black does not act quickly, I think black is hopeless, if not hopeless already.
Correct. So this is the task for John and for you guys. I'm now reading the Twitch chat. How shall black play in this position, and what's the best chance here in order to save the game? So it's a pawn down, as John said, but there's this g4 pass pawn that could give some chances. Hi everyone, hi Chess Bay, you're always the first to be at every stream. literally.
So the first thing I would look at is, okay, how do I sort of get this G4 pawn rolling? And so the first line I intuitively look at is rook F1. And the reason why I look at rook F1 is that rook F1 forces rook takes F1. I play rook F1. And now I've sort of gotten a free tempo to get my rook on the first rank, which can help support my pawn promote. But my question is, my pawn feels slightly too slow. So I'm looking at a line like rook F1, rook takes, rook F1, king, let's say B2, and G3. The issue is that after rook G6, how do I proceed? So this is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, you guys should also do the same. Look at forcing lines first. Black doesn't have much time in this position, has to act immediately.
And let me look.
I see many of you are voting for a trade of rooks, and that's a suggestion that John has just considered, and he will look at it.
Yes, but yeah, this just looks quite bad for black, but this is the line I'm looking at. And so after the exchange of rooks and a line like...
Oh, Danny is in the chat.
Who is?
Danny Wrench, another French hater. This was a game that John and Robert played against me when they were streaming. I didn't hold it, but I think in this rook endgame I should have played better, and that's what we try to solve right now. Dan is saying, Anna and John, chess is new power couple. Oh, Danny, we heard that you were singing Little Mermaid. So we have a way to fight back.
Okay, so maybe I'm looking at... So rook F1, rook takes F1, rook takes F1, king B2, and I was looking at ideas of G3, but I kind of like the idea of maybe rook F5 attacking this H5 pawn and getting counterplay.
So instead of rook F1 check, you would go for rook A to F5.
Rook what to F5?
You mean first move rook F5 you are considering? Or
No,
after the trade of rooks?
I 100% want to trade the rooks, and now
100% want to trade.
Thinking about rook F5 or G3, but I think I can play rook F5 first, and I'm winning the H5 pawn. And the thing is, just looking at it, you're giving this to me, which tells me that black can probably hold this, but looking at it, it looks so bad that I can't see any way other than getting counterplay in the form of my kingside pawns.
Yeah, correct. So it looks bad.
I take this H5 pawn, and I can't see a better way to try to... it may hold, it may not, I don't know, but I think I need to eat this H5 pawn.
Sure, let's play through a couple of moves. I see Danny trying to keep the chat's focus on what he's saying and not what you are saying, but it's okay. No, he's just saying what I also love about John, that John can focus so much on chess positions or on math problems. Like, his concentration is superior to any other human being. Like, you can do whatever you want in the room, you can read whatever comments in the chat, and he would still be focused on the position. So it's incredible. That skill of yours, John.
I don't know if it's skill, but I don't know.
It's a skill. I can't do that. So let's go through this variation that you were mentioning. Rook F1, rook takes, rook takes. Where would you go with the king as white?
So let me think. I would say probably king D2.
Why do you think king B2 is inferior?
Well, I'm sort of moving my king away from the action, and I'm not really too concerned about the rook F2 check. The only reason for me to plant my king on B2 is if I'm concerned about rook F2.
Yes.
But, after king D2, rook F2, now my king is getting more active after a move like king D3 or king C3.
What would you play here as black if the white king goes to b2? Just to have a look at this.
I think I'm going to play rook f5 anyway.
Rook f5. And you're threatening?
I'm threatening to capture on h5, and I'm also threatening rook g5. So it's a dual threat. And by rook
Correct.
g5, I mean I'm threatening rook g5 because now all of a sudden, like they say, rooks belong behind passed pawns.
Yes. So what would you do if white plays rook g6 to stop your pawn?
So if white plays rook g6, well, the first thing I'm going to look at, can I just play rook g5? That's nice. Yeah, rook g5 looks nice. It's really nice.
Robert, we are demonstrating that you were lost. No, he wasn't lost, but in this variation, it is black who is winning. Guys, look at this.
That is, rook g5 is quite nice.
The most beautiful tripled pawns in the world.
Indeed. Yeah, no, rook g, yeah, that's very nice. And I didn't see that immediately. I didn't see that until you just put rook g6 on the board. So, yeah.
It's crazy because here it's just g3, rook g5 is such a big threat. Like, I think the only way to stop it is if white tries to go back from the d file, to go back to d1. But this is certainly not ideal anymore. You can, in worst case, just take on e5 and on h5, and it will be black who is a pawn up suddenly.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden it looks like white is fighting to hold.
Yes, so this is bad. Of course, your intuition is always the best. King d2 is the correct move. And here you were saying rook f5. And your idea is to explain it to everyone and see what you guys say on Twitch. Yeah, rest in peace, Robert.
So my idea is I want to take the h5 pawn and start pushing my kingside pawns.
Yes, and in case of rook g6?
In this case, okay, I got to eval the pawn ending, and this is no longer so good for me because the king is in the square of the g4 pawn. So here I think I would just want to take on e5, not h5 first, because after I take on e5, I can take on h5 still after, because obviously they can't play rook g5.
Very important. This is what you guys should also think. And in this position, you want both pawns, but which one is more urgent? Well, this pawn is about to advance to e6, so you take on e5, then you capture on h5. Very good. So rook takes g4.
And rook takes h5.
And that's it. We at least equal the number of pawns. And now it depends on who will advance first. So white would start pushing the c pawn. And what would you do in this position?
I'm probably...
Question to you guys as well on Twitch and on chess.com/TV.
Okay.
So don't be lazy.
So my number one issue is my rook is in the way. I'd love to play g5, but now I'm sort of trapping my rook, and I want to push these pawns. So I'm going to move my rook. And the question is, do I want to play rook h2? Or do I want to play rook maybe like a5? So these are my two candidates, rook h2 and rook a5. I play rook h2, king d3, let's say. Rook takes a2, and yeah, I mean this, let me look.
So here black is a pawn up, but you
Black
are
is a pawn
slightly
up.
worried about...
But the one thing I'm looking at is that, sort of black is a pawn up, but also, this pass c pawn. I'm trying to look to see if black might have some trouble protecting against that because the king is covering the c2 square.
Yes,
But,
correct. So white should definitely try to push as soon as possible before the black king gets there, c5.
Right, and now I think, Let me see. I suppose so. Now I would choose between rook a6 and rook f2 would be my two choices, I think. And let me look. Rook a6. Maybe they follow up with b4. No, I don't. Well, hold on. Let me see. Rook a6.
Sure. I'll just put it on the board for our community on Twitch and on chess.com/TV. I'm looking at both chats, so guys, I'm reading.
Let's see. Rook a6 and also rook f2 seem okay to me. I think. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of deep calculation required here, but I'm going off intuition. My intuition is I don't see anything wrong with either rook f2 or rook a6, and I think either seem fine.
All right.
Yes.
And you think that black would be in time to hold this position? Like, who is playing for a win here?
In this position, I think black should be able to hold this, but I think white is certainly, I don't know, because you know what they always say that in rook and pawn endgames, it's not the number of pawns, but it's how close your pawn is to queening, and this c pawn is getting quite close to queening.
That is correct. So if it was a blitz game and you didn't have time to deeply calculate this variation, so let's say it's not an endgame study where you can definitely check which one is the best solution. What would you say is the most practical here for black? To grab the a2 pawn and then try to stop the c pawn, or do something else?
So,
Guys, in the chat, would you grab the pawn on a2 or would you do something else? And what is the something else if you decide to not go for it?
So I'm trying to see if rook a5 is better, because in that case, I'm threatening to take the pawn, but I'm threatening to take the pawn with check. And
So rook a5.
And the idea being that, whereas in this other line, I'm giving check and then taking the pawn and giving white a move. Here, c5 isn't an option, so we get a different version of what we just had.
Correct.
Right? At least that's my sort of instinct here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And most likely white wouldn't give you the pawn anyway, but push a4. And looks like the black rook is not that well placed on a5. But it depends on the tempi, what happens in this position.
Right. So the key here, I mean, no matter what I do, I need to push these kingside pawns. And the only way for me to push these kingside pawns is to use my king. So maybe here I go king f7.
So you can use this tempo for bringing your king closer to the queen side. And also to start pushing your kingside pawns.
My key here is that, yes, what did the rook do on a5? Well, I kind of got a free tempo because they had to play a4, and now my rook is out of the way of my pawns. And so that's my sort of...
Yeah. Correct. I think this is actually a better variation. Practically for sure, but maybe even if we analyzed it deeper. It's certainly less risky. You're stopping the b pawn from being pushed because the a4 pawn would be hanging. There's no c5, so you are certainly making it more difficult for white to advance his queenside pawns, and that's what you want because you also want to start pushing g5, h5.
Yes.
So I think this was the solution. This is what I should have played against Robert, but I did not. So John, you play better than I do.
No.
Once again, this is the conclusion.
No. The conclusion is when Anna has 0.05 seconds, he's not as strong when John has 30 minutes, which I would take as a compliment to me.
Anyway, this was very instructive, John, that you found. I played g3 in the game, just for the record. This was a very bad move because after rook g6, I don't have any of the resources I should have had. So first,
no, but
either exchanging
first of all,
rooks.
You had no time. I want this to be noted that she had absolutely...
Doesn't matter. My intuition didn't help me. I pushed g3, so I didn't find the solution. Rook f1, I think, is the best move. Others suggested rook a to f5, which is also interesting. So whether you want to keep both rooks or trade a pair of rook, maybe rook f1 is the strongest. Rook a to f5 is also a good fighting move, like you're threatening rook g5, and you, by placing the rook on the 5th rank, you don't allow this rook to just move wherever it wants to. He would drop the e5 pawn. So both moves were much better than my move. And now on to some real studies. We're gonna have a look at some positions from this book. John, do you know this book in English? Because I have the Spanish copy. I don't know if the title can be seen.
I actually can't see you, so...
Oh, wait a second. I forgot.
Wait, hold on. I actually don't even have our share screen up. Give me a second.
No?
Hold on.
Okay, I'm showing. I'll then ask everyone on Twitch and on chess.com. Do you guys see the book? This is the title in Spanish.
Yeah.
I think it would be Chess Technique for the Tournament Player or Technique for the Tournament Player.
Gotcha.
And the authors.
Oh, that's so cool. I have no hope of...
No, Mark Dvoretsky and Artur Yusupov.
Ah, okay.
So I'm sure you know this book, but my one is in Spanish.
I don't own it, and I've never actually looked through it, but...
That's great, because then you won't know the examples that I'm going to show you.
That is true.
So second position, I guess I need to share it with you again so that you can see it.
Yes, please do.
So 1 second. And guys, if you want to see it, okay, can I copy it to everyone? Though this one is shorter, so you guys should be able to solve it from the screen. But John, you usually copy the link to everyone?
Yes, I just...
When you share it?
Yeah. Well, no, not... So I go to share, I press the share button on chess.com, and then you can copy that link.
Somehow I never find you. Let me know if...
Yep,
if you
okay,
see
I just got it.
Yeah?
Perfect.
Anyway, guys, I think the easiest if you see it from the screen, because I'm very bad at copying links. And let's think together from what you see on the screen. So it is white to move, and I don't say anything else.
Okay, it's white to move.
Yes. And now this is not a game, it's a... Well, actually, maybe it was from a game. Let me check. I thought it was an endgame study, but perhaps it's from a game... No, it's an endgame study from the year 1906. Just as fresh and new as my opening knowledge.
Okay, give me a second.
Sure. Okay, everybody wants the fan. The problem is that I have the chat on an iPad, so I don't know how I'm gonna copy it from my computer. How do I do that? I would need to open the chat here as well. Let me try to do it. Sorry, John, what did you say? Where's the link I can copy? Just the...
Press the share button. It's to the left of the download button, and which is to the left of the, I think, the reset button. Here, I can look at the share screen. Hold on.
Oh, I think
you found it? Okay.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Now I just need to somehow magically... Do you guys still see the board? Let me just know, because I'm now switching between tabs so that I can show it to you. Problem is, it will kick me out if I log in on 2 devices. Want it? I'll try to copy it to Twitch. But actually it's with a few pieces, so... Oh, there's... How did you do it? Thank you, Joran. How did you do it? Thank you so much. It's with a few pieces, so... Now I'm listening to myself. That's because I wanted to come here and share it with you guys. So this is the link but it's deleted. I can't copy it here. I tried. I tried. My own link is deleted from my very own channel. Thanks, Joran. That is a very smart move. Thank you. You guys can capture the pawn, of course, but maybe if it's an endgame study, there's more to it than simply f takes e6.
Yeah, so my plan, I've been thinking about it. Like f takes e6, I mean, even after like rook takes e2, I think, well, the one thing I sort of want to take advantage of here is the fact that black's king is on the a file. And so I mean, obviously, you look at, pawn f6, you look at pawn takes e6, but I'm also looking at, oh, actually, maybe that's a very silly move. Hold on.
Sure. I see some of you guys are getting close to the solution in the chat, both on chess.com and on Twitch, so good job. Good job. I want to see the entire solution. Not just one move, entire solutions. I guess some of you found the way to follow me. So if you're on chess.com, perhaps you can just follow my profile because it's a public analysis board that I have just launched. So I see some of you guys join me on chess.com in the same analysis window. So that's great job. That's what you guys can do from Twitch if you want to come over to chess.com.
Yeah, my first question is, can I not use this time to sort of activate my king is the first instinct. So looking at ideas of maybe king c3, rook takes e2, followed by king d3. So this is one line I'm looking at. And if the rook moves from the e file, my idea would be to take on e6. And if the rook stays on the e file, then my goal would be to play f6. But actually, I'm uncertain of that. This is okay. So I'm struggling with this at the moment. So let me think.
If it's not from a game but from a study, what do you think there could be? Like,
Okay. So if it's not from a game, it's from a study.
Yeah.
I know a couple things. One, the king on a5 is crucial. Two,
Yes.
pawn on e6 is crucial.
Yes.
So is the pawn on e2.
Good thinking. Yes.
And so this means the king is on a5 either because he's too far away from the pawn, because I can use the mate threat of king c5 maybe, or I can do a check. Somehow that's very useful.
Correct.
The pawn is on e6 because the pawn is on e6 because the pawn is on e6 because it blocks the rook on e2. And therefore, but I was looking at ideas of like f6, rook takes e2, then I
Yes.
have like f7, and after rook f2, I don't see much. I was looking at ideas of f6, rook takes e2, and like rook a7, f7, but again, after moves like king b6, I'm not seeing it. I can tell I'm missing something here.
What would be the most forcing? You're saying f6, rook takes e2, f7, rook f2 as the most forcing variation.
Yes, but now I have an issue because now, the rook is covering the f8 queening square, and now my rook is stuck defending my f7 pawn. And my king is a decent distance away. So f6, rook takes e2, and hold on. I'm still, just let me think.
Sure.
I can tell because you said that this one was easier than what we just did. I can tell I'm missing something simple. I can tell. And what am I missing that's so simple?
I'll not say a word. Guys in the chat, many of you have said the correct solution, but I cannot say it.
Do not say it.
Just keep quiet for a moment because John will see it, I'm sure.
Oh, now the pressure's on. Okay.
You have some Canadian friends in the chat on Twitch.
Nice. Yeah. Sorry, everyone in the chat. I actually don't have open because I'm not at home. My internet is sort of limited, so I'm trying to do as little as possible on my computer. Okay. How do I? Okay. I think. Hold on. No. I think I have it.
Okay.
And what I missed was that I assumed that because this pawn was on e6, that a line, for example, suppose there's no pawn on e6.
Yes.
There's no pawn on e6. Let's remove it. I would, in a heartbeat, I would, my first instinct would be to play f6.
Yes.
And after something like rook takes e2, use this tempo of rook h5 and rook f5 to get behind my pawn, because this is where I want to be.
Yes.
But here, the e6 pawn actually makes my position even better.
Yes.
Because they can't play rook e8.
Correct.
And when I play rook f5, which is what I completely missed, I thought I'd love to play rook h5, rook f5, but I get taken and now I'm in trouble. The trick is I just play f7.
Let's put it on the board what John has just mentioned. After f6, rook takes e2.
Rook h5.
The king goes somewhere.
Yeah. And now rook f5. And
beautiful.
The crazy thing is that this pawn blocks the rook on e2 from going to rook e8, which is what it would like to do. And also, if the pawn takes, I play f7. And again, there are issues here because the rook wants to go to, e8. It wants to go to the 8th rank, but can't because I'm covering e8.
Yes. And if it gives a check, it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can just play I don't know, rooks. I like king c2, I think. Yeah, that's fine.
So I have one more check, but it didn't solve
your
the
check's
problem.
Right. Yeah, exactly. King c3 or something.
Awesome. So that was the solution.
So that's one of those things where this is something I'm trying to work on. Sometimes there's a little trick sometimes in a position, and sometimes, sometimes I recognize it immediately, but sometimes it takes me a while.
Yeah, especially if it's an endgame, I think sometimes it's simply that we think that there are no tactics in endgames, like no brilliancies, but plenty of times, especially with passed pawns. Passed pawns are a tactical element, so this is crucial that when the passed pawn is so close to the promotion square, there can be tactical motives because it's such a powerful piece. Well done, John. I know that you are tired because you have had the speech and so many interviews. So we know that today it's not your strongest day, but you will do this one, I'm sure.
Okay.
You'll solve this one. I just need to share it with you and with everyone. I'll make it public now. So if you're on chess.com, find me, and I'm just sharing publicly this position. And I'm going to invite John to see the position. Another rook endgame, because today it's about rook endgames.
Rook endgames. Okay.
Yes.
And yes, my apologies to everyone. Today, it's going to be a slightly shorter show because I do have to leave at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I gave a talk today at Cornell Applied Math, and I have to, well, I don't have to. I am going out to dinner with a bunch of the professors. So,
which is great. You should definitely do that.
yes.
I think I've just invited you. Let me know
Okay,
if
I
you
just
see
accepted the position.
Awesome. It's right to move again, and I will not talk about the position.
Okay.
And my username, for those of you asking, is Anna_Rudolf on chess.com. Anna_Rudolf. Actually, I can type. This is me on chess.com. Let's see. Yes, it sends it. Awesome. That's me. You can follow the position if you find me on live chess. Rudolph the red-headed deer could have been my handle, but it's not. But yeah, next time I think I'll take it.
Okay, so white to move. The first move I would look at immediately, rook g5. But my issue with rook g5 is rook g2. And now they're going to capture on g3. And this is a concern. So rook g5, rook g2. But there may be tricks here. Wait, hold on. Rook g5. Yeah, rook g5. There are tricks here because rook g5, rook g2, king h1, rook takes g3. I think I can play rook takes g6 because of stalemate.
Yes. That was so quick.
Yeah, so
I
that's
couldn't
nice.
even tell people where to find the position yet.
Yes.
And you've solved it.
Yes, that's really nice.
Wow. You've just compensated for the previous position.
Which was quite embarrassingly slow. So, yeah.
And this was incredibly fast. So the average is very good.
Yes, the average is decent.
So rook g5.
The idea is I'm threatening to take this g6 pawn, and it looks like rook g5, sort of fails to this rook g2. Very strong move, but after king h1 and rook takes g3, seemingly winning that pawn, and everything is sort of crumbling. I have this, rook g6 exclam, because if rook takes rook, then it's stalemate. And
beautiful.
Otherwise, if rook doesn't take rook, they're stuck with, an H pawn. And so now passive defense works just fine.
Yes. So for instance, if I just want to keep the rook on the third rank.
So now I can just play rook g1, I believe.
You'll come back here.
Yeah, I think that should work. I'll move my rook to like b1 because it's an H pawn. I can use passive defense because the rook, if the pawn is a G pawn or an H pawn, the issue is the black rook doesn't have enough room on the other side to come around, check, and force my king out. So passive defense works with the G and H pawn. That wouldn't work with the E or F pawn.
Can we present it just in case someone is not familiar with
so
passive
rook
defense?
B1.
So this position is a draw because, let's say, king h3 or king g3.
Rook c1.
He's just going to wait on the back rank. I'm going to push the pawn.
Rook b1.
And John is waiting. Okay, I'm going to play king g3.
And rook c1.
And he's waiting. See?
Still waiting.
H3.
Rook b1.
Woo, this is such a difficult defense. Well, I need to do something. H2.
Okay, and now I can play rook c1.
Yeah, you can keep on playing rook c1, rook b1. Or
let me see. So I would typically just stay passive here, but
which is good. It's good.
yeah, I mean, I see no need to do anything here.
So there's nothing after rook c1. Like black
Yeah,
cannot improve
there's
his
nothing.
position. What John
But
was saying is that you would need room for the rook on this flank, on the other side of the pawn. So there is no file. There's no I file, and
but
that's the problem.
you said or, and give me a second to find the or move here.
Okay, the or move.
Oh yeah, of course. This is nice. Rook b3.
Very good. Just forcing draw immediately. So you can wait on the back rank because it's still a draw.
Yeah.
But if you can force the draw, it's better because the opponent can. There's nothing to do here as black, but he will try for sure. He will try to do
Yeah.
like rook f3, rook f2, just dance around. And if you can force draw, then go for it.
Yeah, of course. Rook b3 is definitely stronger. The nice thing about passive defense is there are actually no tricks that black can try.
Yeah.
Like,
Now that we have talked about this, if I clear this board, will you still see it if I change the position?
I should be able to. Do you want to illustrate for an f pawn or an e pawn? Is that the
Yes, I would like you to illustrate it.
Yeah,
So
I can-
H and G pawn, the same, but John was mentioning it's just the H and G pawn. So it would be a different story with an F pawn or E pawn. I've just made the king disappear. Great job by Anna. So let's try the passive defense with the F pawn. Will it work?
I am mildly skeptical.
Okay, it's black to move.
Okay,
So now you're playing with the black pieces.
Okay, so it's black to move. And so, first of all, I want to say that I believe that this is still a draw, as is.
And the reason is?
Wait, did you say no?
No, I'm just asking. The reason is?
Because, well, the white king is still on the short side of the pawn. And at the right moment, the white rook can get active and give checks from behind.
So if black plays king g3?
If black plays king g3, I believe rook. Ooh, actually, hold on. Oh, that's a problem. Huh. Is this already lost?
I'll let you answer the question.
It looks already lost to me because, they're threatening mate. And the issue is, if I try to move my rook to b8, rook a1 is not what you want. And the issue is that if I make a king move to allow my rook to move off the first rank, well, I can't go to h1 because, again, if I move my rook off the first rank, I'm being mated. And if I play king f1 and move my rook off, now all of a sudden I'm going to the wrong side of the pawn, and I don't like this.
Correct.
Yeah, so this actually might already be busted. But let's look at passive defense and see sort of how you can break this using passive. How you can break passive defense. So, yeah, so
in this position, like imagine we have looked at this with the H pawn. G pawn is the same as the H pawn, and now we are demonstrating what's the difference with an F pawn. So king on G3, pawn on F3, and white is just trying to keep the back rank defense.
Right,
Will it help?
And no, it won't help. And also, white is still, their rook is at this point, after in the position that we started with, white has no option other than keeping his rook on the first rank. So here, white can't, move his rook from the first rank because of mate threats. So maybe white plays, rook c1.
Yes.
The issue is now black follows up with rook a2.
Very good.
And
That's the way to win.
Is to bring the rook to the other side and give check.
So white cannot do anything, cannot abandon the back rank because of the mate threat on a1. Therefore, I go back to b1, let's say.
Okay. And now I am going to play rook h2, forcing king g1. And here,
sorry, I'll just mix. I'll just move slower because I've just realized that some of you guys are saying that you don't get it. So I'll try to slow down a bit. Sorry if it wasn't that easy to understand. For some of you, it might be boring if you know it already. And for some of you, maybe it's too much so quickly. So rook h2, well, black is threatening mate now from the other flank. So white is forced to go king g1.
And now black plays f2.
Check. Only move is king f1.
And now after rook h1, the issues are real.
Yes, it is very real. I've just lost my rook and there comes the queen.
Yes. So
there's no back rank passive defense with f, e, d, and c pawns, just g and h. And the reason is, look at this position with the f pawn, and now let's imagine the same, moving it 1 phi closer. So we have looked at the h pawn, we have looked at the f pawn. H pawn was draw, f pawn was winning, and the g pawn, as John said, is also a draw because you would need the I file to bring your rook there. You would need that file, but it doesn't exist. So that's
exactly. Yeah.
That was today's lesson from John, but he still has one more position to look at before I let him go and have dinner with other genius minds in the world.
I don't know about maybe genius minds. I don't know about the other. What is my fourth position? Let me know.
Sure. And I'm going to try to share it now. And fourth and final position coming up. If you follow me on chess.com, everyone here, you can see it already. I'm going to invite John to analyze on this board. And hopefully he can now
I see it. Who is it to move?
Black. And this is from a game. I can tell you who played it. This is a game, guys, by two chess players that you might know. Because I know them and I think you will know them too. So let me read it out. Maybe that puts more pressure on John. I don't know if it's good or bad. That it's an actual game between Tigran Petrosyan and Anatoly Karpov from the year 1976, the USSR Championship in Moscow. It's USSR, isn't it? Because here I've just realized that in Spanish they write URSS. Makes sense.
Okay, maybe.
So the Soviet Union's championship in Moscow, 1976, with the white pieces Tigran Petrosyan and with the black pieces Anatoly Karpov, and he is in a slight trouble.
Right, and
Mr.
there's only two choices.
Yes,
only two
choices. Two choices only.
And
I'm checking the chat, guys. If I look down, it's because I'm reading. I am Hungarian, but my book is Spanish, so that's why the letters were different. Yes, it's /follow Anna_Rudolf if you want to see the position, and you can also move on that board. Yes, CCCP, that I'm familiar with. I studied Russian at university. Well, if black is in trouble and it's black to move, probably I'm not showing it to you guys because black lost the game. That was the question in the chat, so there must be something There must be something here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Some of the comments.
what do my instincts tell me? My instincts tell me if I was playing a blitz game, I would play King H8, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is that at the end, I'm going to get one of these sort of, I might end up in a, so I'm going to give up the C pawn.
Mm-hmm.
I have to give up the, well, hold on.
You guys can also let me know in the chat, would you play King H8 or King H6? It's not a study, it's a practical position, so it's a game, and therefore you can't really rely on what would a study be like. This is a game between Petrosian and Karpov. I'm just telling to those of you who say that you should go for the least logical. Sometimes logical is good, but what's logical here? Not so easy to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at ideas of like King H1, pawn F7, Rook H1, Rook takes C2, Rook takes H5, and maybe giving horizontal checks.
Once again, I was busy showing the audience the book because the question was what book we are using. Sorry, I'll now pay attention.
Okay, I take it back. King H6 because I don't like the mate threats on the H file.
Huh?
So now that I'm looking at a line like King H6, pawn F7, Rook H1, Rook takes C2, Rook takes.
Let's put it on the board so that our audience can follow up. King H6, you are saying F7.
Rook H1.
And your idea is that I need to take this pawn.
Yes.
If not, C1 is a queen.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Rook takes H5.
Rook takes H5. And what would White do in this position?
So White would probably play a move. Hold on. Let me think for a second. Okay, because here I think White. I mean, White would probably play a move like King E7, I would imagine. Or actually, no, I think White would play a move like, let me see. Again, have pity on me. I'm going to blame it on fatigue. Let me see.
It's definitely fatigue.
No, it's
John.
not. It's not.
John, we know that you know these rook end games, so this is definitely just a very tiring and exhausting day for you.
It's not definitely fatigue, but please just let me blame it on that, even though it's not. So
it is.
Even though it's not, let me blame it on that. And I would play Rook G2 as White.
Mm-hmm.
Rook G2 with the idea of, now your king is cut off. And when White's king comes out, I'm threatening to queen the pawn. And yeah, this is just quite bad for Black. I mean, if Black plays like Rook A5, trying horizontal checks, I believe White can just play Rook G8.
Rook G8 or even more simple?
Even more simple. Oh, yeah, even more simple, King G8.
Yeah, exactly. You've just covered the G5, so you can go King G8 and there's no check. You will promote.
Yes.
Yeah, Rook G2 is one of the solutions. You can also play what you first wanted. Your intuition was King E7, so that there's just no way of stopping the pawn properly. Because the rook is too close.
I got a knock, which tells me it's 6 o'clock and it is time for me to go to dinner.
Thank you so much for this rook endgame session, John, and next time it will be a longer one, and we will play hand and brain as well with all of your followers.
And
I'll stay here with everyone just to finish this endgame.
Perfect. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And I have to go, but everyone have a great night. Anna, thank you as always.
Thanks to you. And I think if you close the Zoom meeting, then we will finish this endgame, and then I also say goodbye. But guys, don't go anywhere. It's just John who's leaving us.
Okay, sounds good. Bye, guys.
Have a great evening. So now that we have no John anymore, I need you guys to work. This position is winning for white because the rook is very close and the king is not in the best position. So there are many reasons why this is lost. There's just no way to stop this pawn. White is threatening to promote. If you give a check, it doesn't help. King f6 and the rook cannot come to f5. So next move you promote. Also in this position you can go king to g8. It's just such a bad situation for black with the king on h6 and the rook on h5. This is completely lost. You are promoting next move. You can give a check. Well, actually, if you play this way, at least black gets the f5 square. So maybe I'm wrong. This is still winning, but it's not as simple. Like now you should give this check and then you can come back to g8. This is a trick that black can never take this pawn in this situation because you will win the rook. So this is more complicated, but in this position almost every move was winning. Simply king e7 and you're threatening to promote. Therefore, from the starting position that we were looking at, king h6 doesn't help. So the only way to save this endgame was played by Karpov, this very move in the game. It happened in the game. Let me show you where is it actually, so that you can see it with your eyes. Well, I don't know if the camera is good enough to show it. But anyway, this is what happened in the game between Petrosian and Karpov. Karpov played king h8 and the game ended in a draw. Now, I guess king h8 and a draw offer would not be good for anyone. So let's see how it happened. After king h8, f7 is a very logical move. And now, you need to be precise. So the only move that can save black is rook to a1. Now, this is an analysis. The game went, I think in the game they played another variation. Wait a second. No, actually it was the game. Well, basically the problem here for white is that black is threatening to promote. So you need to take this pawn. And once you take this pawn, black starts giving checks. Check here, check here. This is the game. I knew that I read somewhere that this is what happened in the game. So this is how the game finished between Petrosian and Karpov. Checks, checks, check. White is 2 pawns up and about to promote, but you have all these checks from the side. King g4, rook a4, king g3, rook a3. He chased the white king all the way back to g2. There are no more checks now from the side. So once the white king is so much back, not active at all, not supporting the passed pawns, this is the moment. After the rook check, king g2, now you activate your king. You have to stop this pawn. Of course, this is an obvious move. And after rook f2, you need to prevent f8. So king f8 was played. And rook f5. I'm just showing you the game. You don't have to understand it move by move, but these are very precise moves played by one of the, if not the best endgame player in the world, Anatoly Karpov. So he stops the f pawn with his king, and now with rook a6 he stops the h pawn as well. Rook a6 exclamation mark, since after king g3, rook h6. It's not easy. I'm pretty sure I would have lost this endgame, so don't worry if you couldn't find all this. The point is that after rook a6, rook h6, and now rook h7, this was the maneuver that draws the game, because next move you can take this pawn. It's very important to know that this pawn endgame This pawn endgame is a draw with an h-pawn. This was a very difficult one. Simply the starting position was whether you would place the king on h6 or on h8. Let me see if I can go back. I want to show you where we started from. So to see all this is almost impossible. These are the best players in the world, 2 former world champions. This of course is not a level that I'm expecting from anyone, nor from myself. So simply, if you voted for king h8, that's already for me a huge success, that you realize that maybe the king will be problematic on h6. But this was by far the highest level of studies that I've showed today. Well, it's a game actually, but the highest level of endgame positions. The other ones I think were on the level of what John should solve. This last one was simply because it's actually a very instructive way, that after king h8, f7, rook a1, you give up that pawn as well, and then you start giving checks until the white king is as far as possible. You chase it back to the second rank. It could have gone on the e file or d file too, but you have to go. In that case, you would not be able to protect the h-pawn that easily. So this was the game between Petrosian and Karpov, and the book once again is Mark Dvoretsky and Artur Yusupov's Technique for the Tournament Player should be the title in English. It's not an easy book. It has some positions that are on a medium level, but most of them are quite a high level endgames mainly. So if you want to start with endgames, I wouldn't start with this book for sure. There are other endgame books that can help you to understand the basics much better than this one. This is not a beginner's book. Thanks everyone who joined me and John today. And next week he will be back with his show. It's on every Friday. And tomorrow I will stream again on my channel. Tomorrow will be an Anna in Wonderland show here on my Twitch channel. So make sure that you follow me on Twitch, Anna_chess, so that you will be notified when I go live tomorrow. I will be picking my fantasy chess team tomorrow for the Pro Chess League, because tomorrow is Super Saturday and then Super Sunday in the Pro Chess League. If you don't know what the Pro Chess League is, Google it, because you are missing a lot. So it's Pro Chess League weekend and I want to find the perfect team. Let's do it together, as I tried it already, but this time we will do it better. We try tomorrow on Saturday on my channel to form the perfect team and to win $10,000 together, which will be split by all of us who form the team. So be here on my channel and let's try to find the perfect team. Once we do that, and if we still have time till the Pro Chess League begins, I will play games against you guys as well tomorrow here on my channel, Anna in Wonderland, starting at 8 p.m. GMT. But if you follow me, you will be notified anyway. Thank you for joining. I see that you guys, yes, that was again the time. I think if you just go to my Twitch, it's anyway announced on my Twitch. So if you go twitch.tv/Anna_chess, then you see the schedule on my Twitch channel. See you guys tomorrow. Well, so many emojis I see from the chess bras. Did you guys realize that we lost many points in the fantasy chess competition because of the chess bras? We shall discuss this tomorrow. It's a heartbreak. So see you guys tomorrow, hopefully at the Pro Chess League, and also on my channel before the Pro Chess League begins at 8 p.m. GMT. Bye bye.